started, Daddy.
Oh, okay. The wheat is almost ready. The next step is going to be threshing that wheat. As with all things, you can figure out ways to thresh wheat by looking on the internets. One of the things that I found was a bucket thresher that just utilizes a drill and several other items. So first off, we have 2 buckets, their lids, 2 lengths of chain, 2 feet, threaded rod, 5/16, duct tape, 4 nuts, 4 washers, some sort of mesh screen. In our case, we found this gutter cover, cheap fan. So this is going to be a variation on a bucket thresher that I found online. Where else do you find anything? One I initially found was a bucket with basically a hole in the top, your chains connected to your threaded rod, and then the threaded rod into a drill. And you just spun that around and that threshed out the wheat, but it didn't really separate the chaff from the wheat kernels themselves. So I wanted to construct a variation on that that would hopefully separate the kernels from the chaff without having to do too much winnowing. So I think the first thing I want to do, put the rod together and get it ready to go. We're going to get the washer, chain. So one thing that this website pointed out is that your chain needs to have an odd number of links, and that way your middle link goes through and you have the same number of links on each side, and so that way it's balanced as it goes, as it spins around. This.
Oh, there's a mistake.
That's okay. I think I can make it work. Okay. Okay. So, next, we need a hole in the top for that thing to go through. There we go. And we'll go ahead and round off some of these rough edges here, just to make it look pretty. Because even if this doesn't work, it should at least look good. So then our friends recommended the duct tape. Going to line this hole to prevent the threaded rod from kind of grinding that plastic down and sending plastic bits into your wheat. I don't think that makes very good flour. And for the purposes of this variation, we're also going to have other uses for the duct tape. Perfect. So what we have here then is the basic threshing bucket that I learned about. So normally we would just put our wheat inside the bucket, put the threaded rod down inside the bucket, attach our drill, and start spinning. And that is the standard threshing bucket. So if you don't want to go any farther with it, that's all you need to do. So next we've got the lid on the next one. So I'm going to use this lid so that the other bucket will nest inside here, but not all the way down. back out. Set this aside. So next, I want this bucket upside down. This is the top bucket. I need to cut a hole in here. Okay, we've got our hole in the top of the bucket. Now I'm just going to smooth that out. Now we've got that nice and pretty, because your wheat thresher should look pretty. Now we need to get this shaped so that it will fit inside of the bucket. That's where our friends the tin snips come in. Alright, so we've got half of the screen done. It's going to go right there, and then we'll get the other half done. And we'll come right back. Okay, so one thing I discovered is that, well, one thing I should have known better is that I would be creating a bunch of nice sharp points. And so I'm just going to use our duct tape to cover those up and make a slightly safer surface to work with. Okay, good. Okay, now we'll just make the other half. Okay, so we've got both of our screens. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is just drop them in. Okay, there's the one, and there's the other. Well, they might open up, so I might put...
Piece of duct tape?
Might have to put a piece of duct tape in there to keep them together. So we're going to put that down there, duct tape those together. I'll even put that excess right up on the side to keep it from moving around too much. So, okay. That's our top Alright, that's the top of our wheat threshing device. That's going to nest right in here. That screen is not going to filter out all of the chaff, so there needs to be some more winnowing involved. So that's where our next step is going to come in. So when you are threshing wheat by hand, beating out all the seeds, but there's still chaff left over, and so what you have to do is you have to winnow that wheat now, and that basically involves taking the wheat and dumping it between two containers with wind, or rather, in our case, a fan blowing. So that blows the chaff away, but the wheat stays where it belongs. So what I want to do is I want to actually have a hole in both sides where we can take our fan, and that is blowing through the wheat as it's dropping through, and hopefully blowing the chaff out the other side. You see my product placement right there? That's pretty good, right? There we go. Okay, that'll make that easier. Oh no! Now Lowe's will never give me money. Okay. There we go. Hold on to this. Don't throw this away.
What's that?
This bucket doesn't work. It's full of holes. So now we've got both of our holes in our lower bucket. The fan will push air through, and ideally it blows the air out and the wheat goes down into the bottom of the bucket. Now, if the wheat happens to, if perhaps the fan might be too strong and it blows some of the wheat over, we want to prevent that wheat from coming, from also escaping. So that is why we want to save these parts. The next idea is to create kind of a ramp to catch any of that escaping wheat and force it to fall back inside while the chaff is continues to blow out. Okay, so I think I want to kind of fit that in here.
Is there any holes so that anything can come out on the bottom?
Yep. Oh, on the bottom? No, not yet. So this is obviously a very small trap here for the wheat. Might even have a third bucket underneath this, but we're going to give it a shot with what we have for now. Let's go collect some wheat.
Why am I doing that with my... Okay.
That's a I don't know, it's about a third full, so we'll give this guy a whirl. Okay, so we've got our bucket with our wheat in it. So the idea,
Clip that thing on.
put this guy down, drop in our chain, whipper, whatever that is, nest our buckets. There we go. And
Drill.
alright, so that's not too bad. The fan is obviously not powerful enough, so we're gonna try something just a little bit stronger. Okay, hold that and wait. Okay, so you're gonna put your feet around it. Yeah. Okay.
Ready?
So after I turn on the vacuum, go for it. Okay, so we had a bit of a fail here. This came right out on Caleb while he was threshing and spilled everything down in here. So I have a good idea of how to correct that problem. Just have to go and get some rivets in there to hold the mesh screen in place, but I won't be able to do that until at least tomorrow, probably Wednesday. So in the meantime, I'll just blow out the chaff that's inside of there and get the wheat that we have threshed in a jar. Well, it's certainly getting darker earlier, so that makes for some shorter videos. Maybe that's not a bad thing. But we ended up with about a cup of wheat. I have the flour mill on the way, so we'll get that. A cup of wheat from, I think, less than a quarter of what's planted here. So I'm pretty excited about this. I honestly, I was expecting to get about 2 cups of flour, and that was it. This was purely an experiment, just having fun with growing some wheat and hopefully making a loaf of bread out of it. So, you know, this will make, this and, the next deal will definitely make a loaf of bread or two. The thresher definitely needs some work. I have a few ideas about that, and I think I should be able to fix those this week. Also, one of our thoughts is that the wheat might need a little bit more time to dry down, and so it makes it easier for the kernels to come out of the I don't know what those are called, but it just hopefully makes it easier to thresh out. So anyway, thank you all for watching. You guys have a good night, and we'll see you for our midweek garden inspection. Thanks a lot.